thank you all so much for coming. Before we jump in, just so that Andre and I get a sense, how many students do we have in the room tonight? How many are? Yes? Oh, okay. So we've got quite a bunch.
Cool.
All right.
Great.
And then that begs the question, who's the rest of this group?
Right.
So, and are any of you designers yourselves, or architects, or yes? Alum, dealer, dealer of. Can't just leave dealer out there, right? I mean,
okay.
That's okay. Furniture for now. Okay, yeah, sure. Whatever.
Leave me your card.
What exactly? Exactly. Can't get enough furniture.
That's right.
Right? Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll
never enough.
Right? Yeah. No. Always good to have a dealer in the audience. Sure. Absolutely. So, thank you again for coming. For those of you that don't know, I am Dennis Scully, and I am the host of the Business of Home podcast, and I'm also the curator of the Dialogues on Design series here at the New York School of Interior Design. And in case you didn't know, this is one of our big fundraisers for our scholarship program. So the money that goes from the subscriptions and the ticket sales here tonight go to our various scholarships, including our pre-college scholarship program and various other scholarships that we offer here at the school. So I'm grateful to all of you for coming out and supporting that. And I'm particularly grateful to the people behind me on this slide who have also very generously given to this program. And I wonder if we could give them a round of applause to thank them for their generosity. And so on to you, Andre, okay? I'm going to make Andre uncomfortable for a couple of minutes, but then we're going to get through it, okay? So I don't know if you all know Andre Mellone, but he's extraordinary on a host of levels, as you will discover tonight. But I'm thrilled that he is here. Andre is trained as an architect. He grew up in Sao Paulo, and we'll talk about that. He spent the last 25 years or so, right, in New York, in what I call shaping a quiet, confident point of view. He spent.
I like that.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
That's how you strike me. Before founding his studio, he spent years absorbing the disciplines from Robert A.M. Stern, Mark Hampton, Ferguson Shamamian, and Sawyer Berson. As some of you might know, he didn't rush into opening his own firm. On the contrary, he let his perspective develop gradually through experience and study, which is part of why his work feels so measured and assured. His projects range from private homes to fashion flagships to lobbies at Rockefeller Center, and he brings the same calm, steady approach to all of it. He was recently recrowned an AD 100 member, so congratulations on that, as well as being on the Elle Decor A list. He has clients around the country and abroad. And for Andre, and we'll talk about this, design isn't a performance. It's really a calling. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Will you please join me in welcoming Andre Mellone? Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I'm thrilled that you could do this.
The same.
Yeah. And thank you to our devoted board member, David Kleinberg, for helping to make this happen. He was instrumental in putting us together.
Good friend of mine.
Yes.
Good mentor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So speaking of mentors, I mentioned that you worked for Robert A.M. Stern early on in your career. Yeah. Sadly, as you all probably have heard by now, we lost Robert recently. I wonder if you could reflect on the impression that he made on you and your time with him.
Yeah, Bob was my first job. It was, it's not like it really started there. I moved to New York in 1994. I mean, that's how old I am.
Do the math on that.
Exactly. And send out a bunch of resumes and got a call back, and they hired me. I didn't know exactly what was happening at the time, but I heard that there was a recession, so they hired me, during a time that people weren't hiring, so I felt like they were, giving me a chance, and I was there for almost 5 years, and it really sort of set up, everything for me in terms of, your work ethic, your relationship with the business, how you present yourself, how you behave, to the methodology of drawing a good sheet, where do you put the plan, where do you put the elevation. It was really a school, but also a family. When I heard of, I haven't seen or talked to Bob in many years, but there was always that sense that if I wanted to pick up the phone and talk to him about anything, he would talk to me. There was a sense of, once you're in it, you're part of it for life. It was an incredible way to start your career.
Yeah. It was late nights at Robert Stern's office.
The very different times. Some people might, consider, this is before, whatever, like politically incorrect.
Before we started all acting better somehow, I don't know, maybe.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't want people to misinterpret, what I'm saying, but I sort of miss a little bit the hardship in a sense, the extra effort,
the grind. You don't feel we have that?
Architecture and design is not an easy profession. You have to give a lot of yourself. You have to be invested in it. And you have to be tough. There's a toughness. That I feel like you need to have in order to navigate. And whether it was appropriate or not, the amount of hours that we worked, looking back, I'm glad I went through all of that. I don't miss working until 11:30 every night.
Until 11:30 every night. Yeah. He doesn't miss that part.
All-nighters, and most of I have a lot of young kids.
Hopefully he doesn't do that with you all.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to convince them, but it was really an incredible place, and it was, like I said, it was my family.
Yeah.
And they still are.
Yeah. And you're still in touch with people from
occasionally. Yeah. Funny enough, these things happen. We're decorating a house that it was one of their projects. So all of a sudden you're talking to the architect again, and occasionally you get a call from somebody or a message. Hey, I'm in Brazil. Can you tell me, where to go? And I made great friends. That are still, my best friends. Today. Yeah. It was super. It was a very unique. Sort of opportunity.
Yeah, no, and an extraordinary education, as you say, and prepared you for a great many things. So tell me about growing up in Brazil. Tell us a little bit of what that was like.
That was also, it's so funny because we're here talking about, design and our careers and, our relationship with interior design and architecture. And I think for me it was, I never had any doubt, right? I consider myself one of the lucky ones, meaning I knew what my vocation was and I knew what my interests were. I inherited it, kind of runs in my family. I come from a family of artists and designers, and I just grew up around all of that. And in Brazil specifically, I was born in the very late 60s. So I'm kind of like, I grew up in the 70s. I'm kind of like an 80s kid, right? it was a very exciting design time, the stuff that's happening in Brazil, around the world, but for me, obviously in Brazil. Brazil is, you guys, there was a very, very strong modernist movement, that started in Brazil, very, very strong in its own kind, different than what was happening in France, different than what's happening in the U.S. And design and architecture is very much part of the culture in Brazil. So it's something that the general population appreciates. So it was a very interesting time and a very interesting time to be growing up, in South America during those years. It was also, very special.
Yeah. And what made you want to come to America?
I was obsessed with film and music. I think that those are the things that I really loved. Like architecture, design and drawing and painting. It was just something that I did, right? But I was really, as a kid, I consumed, American film and music, and started traveling very early on. I had this incredible exchange student program. They sent me to Illinois in the middle of nowhere. I was, so imagine me like a big city, kid. São Paulo is gigantic, right? It's it's definitely a big city, and all of a sudden I'm like baling hay and feeding cows and wearing overalls and taking the yellow bus to the high school. And for me, it was all a dream. I was always very somehow attracted to American culture, and I wanted to have that experience, that campus life, that and I had a deal with my parents, and and they said, start university in Brazil, and if it's really awful, then we'll study. So I started university in Brazil, and I was like, it's awful. It's and then they said, okay, if this is really what you want to do, let's do it. But the deal that I had, my dad is a furniture designer, an industrial designer, really one of the best. Like, I can't say enough about my dad. I mean, to the risk of sounding, ridiculous, but he is really one of the best. Like, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to design furniture. And the deal that I had with them was that I was going to study architecture, because you can always scale it back, right? Start there, and then you can switch to this, switch to that, And he was right. And so I went to Syracuse University, great, fantastic architectural program. 5 years straight, architecture, pounding on your head, lots of history, which is vital, really, to me. If you're a designer, you have to know history. And with 1 year in Italy, very special, like, walking around Italy with the support of an American university. School was really like, a major thing. But it was that, I kind of like, left Brazil, really wanted like a stronger academic experience, and that's what I got,
So Andre and I were just talking, and he said that despite going to Syracuse, he never actually went to a basketball game or a football game.
Crazy.
Because what? And you're thinking, what? How could you not? I mean, it's such a big sports school. You're thinking, how? But
so, yeah, we did everything by hand.
Yeah.
So
he was always in the classroom, sleeping under his desk instead of going to the basketball game.
Yes, we all had our sleeping bag under our desk, and your desk was your.
See, you think I'm kidding?
Kind of your home. It was your home for the year, right? It's like that's where you left your stuff. Your
Is that how it is here at NYSID? Are you kids? Are you sleeping under the desks here? I hope not. I hope not.
You guys are missing. Right?
You're missing that level of intensity. Yeah.
And it was pretty intense, and
And did that ever concern you that it was that intense? Were you thinking, wow, because at one point your dad wanted you to go to business school, if I recall.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because, even though he's a, a killer designer, he's like, you never make money.
He's like,
you never make money.
Don't go into this business.
Artist,
you'll never make a living.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, no, I was absolutely...
You were signed up. You were loving it.
Exactly. Like the school, of one of the many lucky things that happened to me in life, school was really a really special time, and really set a lot of great stuff, for me, for later in life.
Yeah.
As a professional.
Yeah. So you get out of school, like you just told us, you go to work for Robert A.M. Stern, and then, remarkably, you get the opportunity to come work for a world-renowned decorator. Tell us about that. Yeah,
so, recent transplant, to New York, working, your ass off, and that's your life, like you very quickly become, part of that community. And part of it is like you go to the benefit, you go to the dinner with the client, you go with, right? And in one of these things, I met, a crew of guys who were working for Mark Hampton, who was this legendary decorator. I mean, it's like, talk about legendary. I mean, it's like, that it was Mark was part of this very rarefied few, like Billy Baldwin, like, Parrish Hadley, all those people. He was really the guy, right? And and they said, we're looking for somebody like you, kind of like sort of in between architecture and design. We know that you love design as well. Come talk to Mark. And at that point, I was still wearing the architecture T-shirt. When you study architecture and when you train your mind and yourself, to become an architect, like you don't think about sofas and curtains and throw pillows.
And I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it's almost like a heresy,
Yes.
Like architects think about space and they think about light, and can we just not have any furniture? And
maybe that you're a little, maybe you're a little superior. Is that part of?
100%. So it's like, you are superior.
Okay. So not even maybe. Okay.
No,
See, this is the indoctrination, right? That the architects get.
It was crazy.
Go ahead.
It was like, it was almost like as hard as like coming out of the closet. It was really
Which
intense.
he also did, by the way, but later. Sure. Yeah.
But so I had to come to terms, with myself that I didn't want to be. I love architecture, and there's a part of me who's always going to be an architect, and very luckily we get to be involved in the projects that we do right now, in the architecture aspect of the projects. But I really had to sort of admit that I really loved furniture. I loved furniture. I love curtains and throw pillows and no, just the idea.
And that's okay, exactly. Andre, right? That's
and
okay.
The idea of composing rooms, like, playing with composition, which is, which is at the core, right, of what we do. And I made the switch, and it was definitely the right decision. Bob thought I was making the biggest
Bob
mistake of my
wasn't
life.
entirely supportive. Go ahead. Tell us what Bob Stern had to say.
Bob used to say the word decorator in a very derogatory way. Decorator is almost like, it's kind of like an insult. It's like you're going to be a decorator. It's like a.
But you hang in there, don't you?
Thought I was like, making the biggest mistake of my life, but it was totally the right decision. It was an incredible experience. Mark was. He was a legend. It's like that kind of. It was the first time that I was exposed to the relationship between the designer and the client. That intimacy. The intimacy that it takes for you to design a room for somebody. Which is a very delicate dance. you understand your clients' lifestyles, you understand because you live it yourself, but you're not the same. There's a differentiation there. And actually you should never think that you're the same as your client, because we're always going to be the help, no matter what. But seeing Mark do it, so seductively, so it was like a one in a million experience. It was really incredible, and really, it was just like the confirmation, that wow, this is a really cool thing to do, and it's something that I would love to do.
And so you, after a while, you felt good about going down this path and embracing your love of throw pillows and window treatments, and and
there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Let's make that clear. There's nothing to be embarrassed about that. But it did open a whole new world for you from that perspective. And yet, remarkably, not long after that, you go right back to working for a big old architectural firm at Ferguson Shamamian.
Mark was ill, unfortunately, and he, I spoke to him and he said, listen, you should go over for these guys. They're doing a great job. Switching back and forth between architecture and interior design at that point, had become very easy for me. But I was still involved in that world of classicism and traditional design, and which is great, because I feel like you really need to understand all that stuff, before you go into modern, into modernism. Minimalism, modernism, they all came from the tradition. So you have to understand, classicism before you do, something minimal. So even though it was a lot, it was many years, like drawing, Corinthian columns and, impediments and, crazy traditional architectural details. In the end, it made total sense. Again, it all sort of made sense at the end,
So we joke about how architects are trained and how they perceive decorators. It gets a little caught in their throat, right? But I mean, is that how it should be in your mind? Is that a healthy construction for that dynamic? I'm sort of amazed in 2025 that there seems to still be such a divide between those two, and I wonder how you think about that.
It should, it shouldn't be, because the most successful projects, and really when you wanna hit that mark, is the perfect combination between the two, which means a great collaboration. If you want a room to be well lit, for example, the architect needs to know where the sofa is going to be. They need to know where the coffee table is going to go. They need to know where the floor outlet needs to be. So the more those two things work together, the more successful it's going to be. It is, let's say, antagonistic, because the thought processes, the personalities, can be very different. Usually the people that are more attracted to interior design and decoration have a different kind of point of view about things that, the guy who's worried about, the proportion and the light and so that's where the challenge is, But in theory, we should really love each other.
We should be working together, love each other.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. More of that. Right.
But that's something that, I find that I have it on my side, because I feel like, when we sit down with the architects of the projects that we're doing, there's a little bit of a relief. They're like, oh, okay. because they sort of get me a little bit, and I get them, and
So you convey that you speak their language, and then suddenly
exactly.
they're, okay.
I always...
What are the key words you drop so that we know how to use them in conversation ourselves?
Yeah, you sort of like, you try to make the connection. But, no, but I think, as a decorator, and I use that word as a badge of honor, in a sense, the challenge is that you should treat the, clients will probably, say, what the hell is he talking about? But you should...
None of them are here tonight, so don't worry. This is a safe space.
You should treat the architect as a client. The client, if the architect is on your side, then everything, it's going to be great. So convince the architect, seduce the architect.
Okay.
And
so that's what you think the decorator should be doing, is
sure.
winning over the architect.
Instead
because
of
that's the architects say to me all the time, oh my gosh, I have to win over the decorator because they're the ones that's closer to the client.
But that's the wrong strategy.
Okay, see, we're learning a lot already.
Yeah,
all right, so the right strategy is...
Well, remove your ego from the equation.
Hard to do.
It's like, yeah. But but that's the thing, and that's something that I learned, with my dad. If you really know what you're doing, you shouldn't be concerned about your ego. There's so much ego in our profession.
I've noticed.
It's one of the reasons why it took me so long to start my firm, because it's the opposite of who I am. I don't have any need to assert myself, other than through the work itself. Everything is a collaboration, whether it's with the architect, whether it's the client, whether it's the upholsterer. And if you're not going to collaborate, you're not going to have a successful project, period. But it took me a while to understand that you can actually be a professional without being that guy, It's like the craziness and the affectation and the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of acting that I don't think is necessarily necessary.
Well, so I want to talk about that more, because I think there's a lot there that you just put out there. But first, let's come back to how long it took you to go out on your own, and what the thought process was there. So, Robert A.M. Stern, Mark Hampton, Ferguson Shamamian, went to work for Sawyer, Berson, and all of that. And what was it that you didn't feel ready to go and do on your own? And then what happened that finally made you feel you could? Yeah,
so, I was very happy, don't get me wrong, I was very happy being an employee.
Yeah, clearly.
It's great, there's a beginning and an end in terms of involvement, right? You have more time for yourself, you are well assisted, you have a job to do, and you do that job, and you take care of your life, like outside of it. And I was working for great people, great projects, and for many years I was very satisfied. The idea of becoming a businessman, of having my own firm, was something that it was a very far reality for me. I didn't think I had it. I didn't think I could helm my own name, my own firm. Maybe I was a little intimidated by the amount of work that takes. And I think when you're in your 30s and late 30s, and you live in New York, it's like you want to enjoy your time, you want to enjoy the city, you want to so there was a little bit of that.
You don't want to be busy running a firm, you mean?
Right,
like
exactly.
It's all that sure.
No, but
cuts into your social life. I get it.
I had been exposed at that time to so many different players in our industry, so many different people, so many different personalities, and my mind could sort of recognize, who the leaders are, who are the people that are really sort of, and I didn't see myself in it. I didn't recognize myself in it. you know, in my mind is like, okay, you're going to be a designer, and I think people will understand what I'm saying. You know, it's like you're gonna look like a designer, you're gonna talk like a designer, you're gonna, you know, things are gonna look a certain way. You know, there were a lot of sort of like preconceived ideas, you know, on my side about what it meant to be a designer. That don't necessarily have to do with the actual work, you know, that has to do with like this, it's almost like you become a personality, right? And I never saw myself being able to do that, you know, because and again, I think it's a privileged position because I come from you know, I have, let's say, and listen, I don't mean this as a grandiose, you know, way, but I have pedigree in a sense. I don't have anything to prove, you know, to anyone. My relationship with design was very natural, very early, you know, and very sort of easy and organic. I mean, that's a stupid word, but that was my relationship. I didn't, you know, I had my relationship and my love to design, and all that other stuff I didn't see really sort of fathoming into my life. So I said, if that is what it takes to be a designer or to be the chief, you know, of a firm, I can't do it. You know, I'd rather be an employee. I'd rather have my departments that I take care of, you know, that is fulfilling my, you know, my desires. But I don't think I'm that guy, you know. And it just took a long time to finally say, you know, I can do it in my own way. You know, I can be a designer however the hell I want to be a designer, you know. And obviously that works with some clients, that doesn't work with other clients. You know, I always say that I'm not a decorator's decorator. You know, like I lose interest. I don't have a lot of interest in like napkins and you know, placemats.
He recognizes the necessity of them, but it's not a passion.
You know, and sometimes I have clients that say, "Oh, what should it be? The placemat?" I was like, "I have no idea. And I have no interest." And you know, and that, like I said, that works with some clients.
Right.
That doesn't work with other clients. But decoration for me has to do with creating like bigger structures that a room can hinge on. You know, that things can be out of place, that the flowers can be dead, you know, that, you know, it's about creating more a style structure, you know, rather than having everything be immaculate and perfect and sourced and, you know, and figured out, you know. Again, which goes back to this very early on idea that I had, that it is this more natural relationship with design rather than this ultra kind of curated, you know, which is hard to talk about because if you look at my work online, you know, everything. I was going to
say it looks pretty.
Yeah, it's like, but that's the thing. It's like a photo shoot is an artificial thing, you know. Sometimes you relay out rooms just because, you know, this angle looks better, you know. What I really love is like going back to a client's house a year later and they brought in like a ugly sculpture and
they've messed the place up.
Everything's out of place, and you know, they're like, "Oh, I don't want you to see it." And I was like, "No, this is what I love. This is like, that's design, you know, for me. It's like, you know, let it get beat up, you know, let people put their own energy in it. You know, that to me, I would not like photograph the rooms like that, you know, it's like.
Yeah. And it shows that they felt comfortable really living in the space that you created for them. Yeah. Right. So that's.
Yeah, but you know, when I get, you know, a call about, you know, what do I do with the wine stain? I was like, you know, leave it, you know.
I can't help it.
No.
Can't help it.
Yeah, so, but like I say, but it goes back to this idea of like being your own professional. Everyone who's supposed to be working with you will naturally gravitate to you, you know, and the people that are not supposed to be working with you are going to gravitate to somebody else. You know?
Yeah. Along those same lines, and then I want to jump into some work. And before I ask my next question, I want to plant a seed that we're going to open it up to questions in just a little while. So think about questions that you have for Andre. But I want to pick up, and sure, staffers are welcome to ask questions.
Oh my God.
Members of Team Mellone can ask questions too. But you've talked about, oh yeah, the entire front row here is, did we mention? Yeah.
Right.
We talked about this, the performative nature sometimes of our industry, and you and I have talked about this in the past. One of the challenges that many in our industry face today is that they are not actually social media influencer personalities, but that seems to almost be a requirement today. And I know you aren't naturally that way yourself, so how should we think about that? How do you think about it?
Yeah, this whole thing with, you know, for me, I mean, I'll call it Instagram, right? Because, you know, I don't have any other social media, but, you know, the phone, right? Thing.
The darn phone.
Yeah, no, it's like a, it's inserted itself in our lives. You know, it's part of our lives. And I have a love-hate relationship, you know, with it. You know, sometimes I can't let go. Sometimes I you know, try to lock it away. You know, it's there, you know, and it's something that we have to deal with. I find, you know, that in the period, you know, since I moved to New York and started, you know, working and then later on practicing, things change very quickly, you know, and very intensely. I feel like nowadays, and it's something that it sort of frustrates me a little bit. It's almost like it's not about just the profession of interior design or the profession of design. It sometimes it can be almost irrelevant, the actual quality of your work. We live in a time that we're all actors. You know, we've all become actors. So you can be an incredible designer, right? And the work might be, you know, fantastic, but you suck at live or the.
But you might be a terrible actor.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
and it's something that I find very weird and unfair, and
conversely, your work might not be very good at all, but you're an incredible personality,
great, exactly,
right?
Like, it's a clouds things, you know, and I hate to, you know, and I hate to see younger designers taking lessons, taking cues from Instagram. You know, I think that's, you know, absurd. You know, it's like really, it's because, you know, we're all so, and I'm guilty of it, you know, you know, I'm obsessed with it, you know, at times, you know, like everyone else. But is this thing about the perfect vignette, right? I love how and people like to write about it. It's like, you know, this painting sits below the sofa that is this, and the sofa is this, you know, and it's almost about that one flash, that very kind of quick light that burns very bright and quickly, and then it's over. And that's not really how you should be, you know, learning about design. And a beautiful Instagram vignette, you know, that gets, you know, thousands of likes, you know, it is not necessarily good design. You know, I think, you know, sometimes when I'm in my kind of crazy depth scroll, you know, it's so easy to be seduced. It's so easy to look at something and say, wow, this is really beautiful. And then really, if you take 5 minutes, just like looking a little bit at the details and like what is really happening, all of a sudden you see how mediocre it is, you know, but we're all so blinded by this sort of intensity. But yeah, I think, you know, I don't know, you're not gonna learn from Instagram. If you want to become an influencer, and that's something that you're gonna make money, and that's your objective, and that's what's driving you, and you're happy, great, you know.
Sure.
Great, you know, but like if we're talking like, you know, people that are really passionate about design, that really, you know, want to grow and do their best, you know, it's something that pisses me off, actually. It's like, you know, I hate that we're like so dependent on it and so involved and so, you know, needing to, you know, to do this and to do that and the welcome to my home and the, you know, it's like, you know.
Yeah, where's the home tour, Andre?
Right,
when am I getting the
like,
home tour of Andre Mellone?
It's like, no, and I've done it. I've done it all. You know,
Sure.
I've
seen the AD videos.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes more successful, sometimes less. You know, I tried, you know, but it's really something that I'm not ever 100% comfortable, you know. I just wanna work, you know. I want to do the work, and I want my clients to be happy. And I feel like I want to focus on that energy and on that relationship. And I feel like everything else comes, you know. If that is in the good place, everything else comes. You know, the money comes, the attention comes, the proper attention, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's that, you know, like, yeah, Instagram is like it's, you know, I can't let go, but I hate it at the same time. You know, it's like,
But really, put your head down, do the work,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like,
do great work and
read books, you know.
Read books.
Read books. Books are still incredible. Design books are, you can still find an image that you find in a design book that you're not going to find online.
Right.
You know, it's, yeah.
Okay.
Read books and work.
Read books and put your head down and turn off that darn phone. Right. Okay. That's the advice. So let's jump into some of your work and let's talk a little bit about your process and let's share some things with people. So,
yeah. So I draw. Like I love to draw. It's something that is part of my process. You know, as you guys can see, and I think clients enjoy that too, because, you know, I don't think that there's a lot of us left. And
we're still drawing this way.
Yeah. You know, like. But I'm also open to new technologies, you know, new ways of presenting. I was a guest critic at the New York's School of Interior Design master courses, and I was blown away by the level of presentation, the computer renderings, all the stuff that I can do, and I'm really curious about, you know, what can be done, and, you know, and what our students and, you know, designers are going to be able to do with all these new technologies. I'm not like against, you know, kind of using the computer, but I'm still from the time that there was a kind of like a brain, hand, paper sort of connection, which for me gives spirit, you know, to the project. I measure this. Like, the projects that I sketch more are the more successful projects. You know, that's something that is still
that's interesting.
Counts.
So what's the connection there, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with like this intangible, you know, thing. I don't know if like you're accessing a different part of your brain, you know, that is allowing you to visualize and imagine things in a different way. But yeah, I mean, I try out a lot of stuff in drawing first. I think if you go see, it's the same room, but like quite, you know, sort of different.
Sketch,
you know,
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is that was a house we did that was our first sort of ski house in Jackson Hole. This is like, I put these in because, you know, we develop quite a bit of furniture as well. And this is an idea for a bed, and I love furniture that expresses itself in a more architectural way. So this is like, it's a built-in bed with like built-in sort of shelves and storage, and, you know, so it started like this. And then we sort of improved a little bit, you know, with like a sliding drawer, you know, for surface, and kind of like a ledge behind, and then boom. You know, it's like, for me, it's like
magic.
You know, for me, it's like, I just love the process. You know, I have, you know, piles and piles and piles and piles of like pieces of trace paper. You know, they're always all over the place, all over the floor, and, you know, you grab everything and you show it to the clients, and somehow they, they're able to make sense of it. I think for me, it's like 3D, whether it's a sketch, whether it's a computer rendering, is absolutely essential to try layout. When I'm an architect, I think more than, I start there, and I think like the plan usually, I always say the plan never lies. Like if you figure out things in plan, you are, 80% there. But then when you start seeing, like especially a layout, a furniture layout, like in this room initially, we were thinking 2 L-shaped sofas, that open out into the garden, which is this way. And you start seeing it, and then, when you start visualizing in 3D, some things start not to make sense, So that was like a test, and then we did, another try with this sort of like double-sided sofa, which is, in our career, like in my career, there are some key ideas that we love, and then we do it 20 times. We do it this way in this project, and this other way in this other project. Now we're gonna like flip it. Now we're gonna do this. And I love that. I love that you take an idea and you improve it and you improve it and you improve it and you improve it. Until it seems the right.
And this was the final.
That was the final. Yeah.
Yeah, look at that, right?
This is an extraordinary house in Brazil that we did in partnership with these incredible modernists, like pure raw modernism, these nylon see-through panels, with like glass ceilings and granite floors, very modern, very reminiscent of, Mies and, and Corbusier, like, that was a pleasure to do. Yeah. I love this image here because this is a recent project that we did. For the first time, we curated a show in partnership with the Furniture Gallery. We basically took their inventory, the inventory of things that they wanted to display, and decorated an apartment, using their pieces. And we had this idea of like replicating old hotel lobbies, looking at furniture more from an installation, point of view instead of a decorative point of view, where you can really focus on the individual pieces, less ornament, less, accessories, more about functionality. And we started with that sketch, and and kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously.
Beautiful.
So then I included this. This is one of the lobbies that we did for Rockefeller Center. This is obviously a computer rendering. And this is me doing a computer rendering. So like I have a guy, I have a guy.
He's got a dealer.
Yeah,
He's got a dealer, just hooks him up with some computer renderings. Yeah.
And basically, I sketch, right? I can draw. So like my brain is thinking a certain way. And I quickly understood that the technology is available, but how you play with the technology and how you adjust the technology, you basically have to use the same set of skills, as if you were drawing, because it has to do with the texture, it has to do with the light, So I love the process of working side by side with a great computer renderer and really pushing him or her, to do it in the ways that I would do it if I were drawing, So that was the computer rendering, and then that was the final. That was a great,
yeah, it's a great
project. Like we designed everything, like architecture, lighting. Well, lighting was done with apparatus, but yeah. Testing a very kind of different composition, like a long and skinny room. We wanted to do a grouping of 4 club chairs with this pendant in the middle of the room. Again, testing on the hand first, and then. I put this in because this project was the first townhouse that we designed, and it was just published on Architectural Digest. My client unfortunately refused to pose for a portrait. So they did a very tiny little story at the beginning. They said, okay, if she's not going to show her face, we're going to do a little story. I was like, just give me any story. And there it is. Yeah.
And this was your first townhouse project?
That was our first townhouse project, which is, again, great experience. I've been in New York for 30 years. I consider myself a New Yorker, and I had never done a townhouse. And so many interesting things, so many unique problems, to be solved, when you're doing a townhouse. Because everything is kind of small.
Yes, and lighting is challenging.
Everything is kind of like, the scale. I learned that scale is one of the most important things that you have to take into consideration when you're doing a townhouse. So we have to think about a 2-inch difference between a chair and and the size of the upholstery and the size of the furniture. We had a lot of fun. Yeah. That's the dining room of that house.
And I think that's our, yeah. So you do a lot of different kinds of work. So as we showed, this lobby in Rockefeller Center, and you've done a lot of retail in your. Is there one that appeals to you more? Do you love residential? Yes.
I mean, I love residential. We at the beginning of when we started the office, a couple of fashion designers that are friends of mine said, let's do a store, and I said, I've never done a store before. And actually, one of them was Thom Browne. You guys might know, he does these very kind of severe suits, very, very,
yes,
very interesting, point of view and look. And Thom is a guy that really has his design, thing figured out. And I'll never forget, he said, I want you to do a store exactly because you've never done a store before. And that's, what I learned, that all these preconceived notions, so I had, let's say, preconceived notions about what it means to be a designer, how do you have to look and behave and act, right? But there's also so many preconceived ideas about residential, hospitality, retail, what is all of that? And very early on with Thom and with my discussions with him, it was something that I realized that those are also preconceived ideas, So it's design is becoming one thing, one thing. You get more and more a client that comes and say, I was just in such hotel and I want the house to look exactly like that. And then you get, a guy that owns a clothing store that says, oh, did you see such and such house? I want the store to look like that. Everything is converging into one, which I think has to do with the design experience. So all these rules don't apply anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's and I remember when he said that, I don't want you to have any preconceived ideas about what is a store, I just want something, that is great, that is beautiful, that, that shows a point of view. So, with that in mind, we did quite a bit of stores. We did, stores for him. We did Carolina Herrera on Madison, which is not so reflective of our style, but it was a great collaboration with Wes Gordon, who's their creative director. We did Jason Wu, we did The Row, and is a great experience to have. Retail is a different speed, there are different budgets, and I think a great experience to have. But I think our passion is that great residential project. Particularly for me, I'm into the relationship. I think so many times I've heard designers, friends of mine, that they don't want. It's almost like the client doesn't even exist. It's like their ideal client is that guy that gives you a bunch of money at the beginning and says,
That's what they all tell me. They give me the money and then go away.
Exactly. I'll see you at the end. You know,
that's not your ideal?
It's not that it's not my ideal. That is a nightmare to me. No, it is, and it goes back to this idea about doing things your own way. I am perfectly aware that so many of the decisions that I make and so many of our attitudes, you know, towards our business are not the best business decisions, you know. But for me, it has to do with like the honesty, you know, and the trust. The trust between you and your clients, the trust between you and what you're doing, you know. And what I want is the collaboration, you know. I want the happiness, I want the drama, because for me, those are the things that that propel design. Those, you know, the tension is necessary, you know. You have to take yourself out of comfortable positions, you know, in order to grow. And that's the kind of work that I want to do. I want the involvement. I want to hear the drama. I want to, you know.
You want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I want to understand what happened tonight at school, you know, and because that's going to give me information that is going to make somehow, you know, if it sounds crazy, but that's what's going to make a better living room, you know. Some crazy idea is going to come from that, you know. I don't want to create a stage set, you know.
Yeah.
I think like one of the greatest things about what we do is this incredible responsibility of creating the environments that people are going to live. What's more powerful than that, you know? They're going to raise their children, they're going to fight, they're going to make up, they're going to like, you know, it's like, it's a very powerful thing, you know, what we do. And it's that, you know, it's like, it's real life, you know, it's not a, you know, like something just for people to look at, you know?
Yeah, no, and I think we often undersell that in our industry, is the impact that you're going to make on people's lives through the work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The biggest rewards, you know, that I get, it may sound so insignificant, but sometimes, occasionally, I'll get like a text from a client that I haven't talked to in a year, or, you know, the project finished 2 years ago, and I'll get a random text that says, Andre, I just walked back into our home. We were traveling, and it's just the feeling, you know, of walking into that room is so great, and we love it so much, and, you know, thank you for having, you know, done this for us or with us. You know, it's like that to me is like, okay, this is like, that's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I do,
Yeah. Karen?
Yes, sir.
Let's see if we've got some questions in the audience. Karen has microphones in her hands, and she is going to come to you. Who's gonna kick us off with a question? Okay, we've got a couple over here. We're coming right over. Don't be shy, people. Don't worry.
Back to you.
Oh.
There's this one right there.
And I think the gentleman in the back too, but we'll come back to you.
Woman.
Hi.
When you were talking about your education and Syracuse in particular, you seemed real passionate about it. What was it exactly? Was it the students, the teachers? Can you elaborate a little more on that?
I mean, I think it was just like, you know, really discovering what architecture was, you know, like I mentioned history too. Like they made you take so many history courses, and when you really get into the history of design and architecture, it's like all the stuff is there. You know, all the you know, the DNA for everything, for all the ideas are in history. But you know, to what you're saying, it was a great sense of camaraderie. Like we were all together in this big room. You know, like we each had our desk, and we're each sharing. You know, you guys probably know how it works. You know, architecture school. You know, you get a every semester you get a project and you develop that project and you present it at the end. So we all have the same project, and so it's like it was an amazing process of like, how is my friend developing, you know, how is he tackling the same ideas, how is it, you know, it was like, you know, I've been thinking about this so much, but design is really a community, you know, and it starts in school. It was that. We were all in the same boat, you know, and equally terrified, you know, about what's going to happen to us, and, you know, and the you know, who's going to judge our design, and, you know, so it was that. It was yeah, it was.
Okay.
The community.
Yes. Oh, yes, sir.
Me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're starting a new project and going through a home, it's like your first time walking through. How do you kind of conceptualize and sort of feel that out? Like, what is your first step in starting to feel out the direction of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I'm not that guy that sort of walks into the room and goes, "Oh my God, I'm seeing this," you know, pink, you know, like, and I feel like sometimes clients are very disappointed, you know, because they're looking at me and they're waiting for, like, you know.
They think that's part of the theater that you're going to bring.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And I think it, for me, is an interesting process. It goes back to this idea of architecture. I look at things, you know, we take photos, or, you know, my crew take photos, and I need to go back and look at things in plan. I always look at the plan, you know. I look at the plan, I study the plan, and that's when the ideas, you know, start to come. You know, it's not just about, you know, an initial reaction of being at a space. I need to look at the architecture of things. And then you go back, and then you start, you know, going back and forth. But it's not just, for me, it's not just a gut reaction. Is, you know, I need a bit more information. Usually has to do with, like, drawing. You know, usually has to do with drawings. Yeah.
Okay, over here. First over here. Oh, first we're going all the way across the room. All right.
I was curious if when you were at Mark Hampton's office, if you worked on either of the Bass house or apartment, maintenance or anything?
I didn't work at the Bass projects, but I did.
Was there a problem? Does he need to check in on something?
Any interesting anecdotes?
Okay.
Oh, I have a very funny anecdote. I wasn't part of the projects, but I had to. They sent me on a measuring trip one time. There was a piece of furniture that needed to be, I think it was a credenza, that needed to be replaced, and I needed to go and measure the the niche, you know, that was gonna go, and they gave me a briefing before I went to the apartment, and this was it was Ann Bass's apartment on Fifth Avenue, that insanely iconic. I mean, talk about, you know, I always like, I feel like, you know, some rooms, they get into the ethos, you know, right? It's like the Armani apartment, you know, Yves Saint Laurent's, you know, Pierre Berger's house. You know, I think Ann Bass's apartment that Mark Hampton designed on Fifth Avenue is one of those projects. But it was my first experience with, like, a completely terrorizing, like, client that, you know, so the director was like, "Don't speak, don't look at her in the eye, and don't even say anything, even when you're going down the elevator, because apparently everything is wired," you know. So, and I remember, I will never forget this. Actually, you guys are gonna laugh. It was the first time that I had seen a kitchen with wall-to-wall carpeting. So what is the sense of it? What is the philosophy behind it? She was so strict and so obsessed with organization and cleanliness that the kitchen is carpeted, because you're never supposed to drop anything on the floor. And So, but that, but those are like extremes.
Yes.
But obviously,
Did you later incorporate that into any of your own? Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was but you enter the apartment and there was one of the Degas dance sculptures. There was a House of Parliament, Monet above the fireplace. Those experiences you never forget. You never forget the compositions. You never forget the colors. And even though there's a craziness aspect to it, this business about, carpeting in the kitchen, that's what we do. It's design is this spectrum, right? And there's a place for everything. Maybe there's a place for a carpeted kitchen,
No.
Once in a,
Not really, though.
But,
no.
but yeah, but it's funny that you asked. I'll never forget that day. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it had a huge impact. Okay,
Over here.
Over here.
What color was the carpet?
Pink.
Pink, okay.
Pink and white marble countertops, and every cabinet, every kitchen cabinet had a professional photograph. It looked like a Richard Avedon photography of what was inside. So you had, a series of plates. There was a professional photograph framed
of
on
the interior
outside of what was inside.
Sounds like Barbie on steroids.
No,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is about the last photograph that you had up. Since I'm a furniture dealer,
Yes.
I was just, they look very, I love the chairs. Are they Italian? They look Philippe Starkish to me, but I was just curious.
So those were client owned. According to my client, they're Jean Seng.
Okay.
I don't have the proof, but she's had those for for a long time, and those are in her old dining room. So.
And how much do you talk with your clients about collectible design?
All the time. It's a huge part of what we do is vintage. I would gladly decorate an entire house just with vintage. It's much easier for me to go vintage than to go contemporary. Even though I feel like the more successful rooms are a mix of vintage, contemporary, and custom. Like those are the three, this triangle for me.
Oh. You
She
bought
thanks you for a purchase.
many years ago.
Okay.
You bought a pair of 70s modern dark green marble boxes from me. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
I think I
All
remember
right,
those.
and he
Thank
cherishes
you.
them.
Yeah.
While he can't call them to mind at the moment, he cherishes them. And
I remember those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a
Thank
question.
you.
We have a question over here, too.
Okay.
But just before the question, I just have to chime in and say, my architect father insisted on a carpeted kitchen.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go.
And it was obviously traumatic for you, and I'm sorry.
Obviously.
Yeah, I get it.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
My question is, when you first started your studio, how much time you were balancing between sort of running the day-to-day operations in the business and being creative?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's like you spend a lot of time, I always say, and we still do, running operations. That is, that's what we do. The design and the creative, happens fast, happens quickly, and then the rest is administration, getting things from, point A to point B, But yeah, I mean, I obviously I started by myself. I didn't have anyone working for me, so I was doing the invoices. I was doing everything myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is about AI. It's obviously a big buzzword, and
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. Bring AI into the room. Sure, go ahead.
yeah, there's maybe some fear around it, but I love your idea about learning off Instagram and going back to the classics. I think that's something we all want, but have this contrast between AI and what's going on. So I'm curious what or how you use AI, if you do, and how you think AI will change our industry?
We don't use AI yet, do we?
Let's check with the team. You guys aren't secretly using AI and not telling. Okay. All right.
Yeah, because everything that has to do with technology, luckily, my crew, takes over. I think we have to face it, and we have to admit that it will affect everything, and it will affect the business. I'm very curious as of how. I'm totally open to it, and I feel like, just because I'm that guy that draws still,
totally open to it?
It's like it doesn't mean that I'm not open to what's next and what are the new technologies. And I feel like, at the best, should be a great tool for us. I still believe that even the fastest, the craziest, the more advanced computers and AI, there's a process that has to do with concept that I think everyone that is a designer here kind of understands. It's that little kind of like bulb, whatever, the little like ray, that goes like that in your mind. I don't know if a computer will ever be able to replicate that, So I feel like AI can bring things to a great level, but, the strength will be, with our participation. But I'm speaking completely sort of speculative, because I'm not really familiar with, the few experiences I had with AI, they've just been kind of like dumb and funny. Like we have a client that takes the renderings and feeds it to AI and says, "What would Peter Marino do?" And then it creates a room with like the most basic interpretation of what Peter Marino would do. So I'm like, okay, computer, we're still got on you, But no, but I feel like it's something that we definitely have to be open to it, and work with it.
Okay, one more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I'm Rahil. I go to Pratt. I'm just coming from there. But I had the chance.
Okay, you're still welcome here. Please don't.
Yeah, I had the chance to visit the gallery you curated for Gallery Gabriel
Yes.
in Sutton Tower, and I did see your watercolors.
Yes.
You also speak about watercolors that you did in Florence, which you then sent to Rams Architects.
Yeah.
But in contrast to AI, the hand is also gaining dominance, and we have like a new focus on craftsmanship. So to what extent does watercolors play a role in your design process?
Let's say if I had time and if I could, I would do much more of it. The same way as drawing serves a purpose. Watercolor also is a medium that you can express so much to it. I very rarely do it nowadays just because of time. Because like everything is moving so fast, but. Maybe in the future. I mean, the goal for us is to do less projects and charge more money. So we can kind of
write that down, students. Right. Yeah. So less projects, more money. Yeah.
But it's something that I don't. I still have my brushes. I still have my sets. And I still want to get back into it. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and you made the point earlier that there does seem for you to be such a connection between the mind, the hand, drawing it, feeling it, and the more you sketched, you suggested, the better it turned out. Yes. So there's something very meaningful going on there.
Yeah, I can't explain that, but I know that the more you draw, the better a project is. At least that's my experience.
Yeah. Which is one of the concerns about getting away from that, is it still seems very connected. I wonder, in conclusion, Andre, You've talked a lot about how your architectural training has been so helpful and informative in your design work. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this divide between architects and designers. What do you think more designers should understand about architectural thinking, and then vice versa? Like what could architects better understand about what decorators and designers do and bring to the whole thing?
It's a little bit of what we touched early on. One doesn't exist without the other, right? As much as architects idealize spaces and want to have that kind of almost like spiritual experience, the person that lives in the house needs a place to sit, right?
Yeah.
And if we, if you're really able to, to marry the two, I mean, that's the ideal. But that's the thing. My experience, and it's something that I do and I try every day. You have to get to a point where there's no competition. There's no competition between the interior and the architecture. And there's a way, and there are worlds where they can, coexist. But not only coexist, make each other better. That's the goal.
That's what we're working towards.
Yes.
Yes. Happy coexistence.
Exactly.
Yes. Excellent. Will you please join me in thanking Andre Mellone for coming tonight? It's
Thank you guys.
So we were talking about Instagram earlier. I fell in love with Andre's work through Instagram and didn't know him before. I was so enamored of his work, and I had no idea what a lovely human being he would turn out to be. But as you all got to see tonight, he's just an extraordinary man and an extraordinary talent. So I thank you again so much for coming out and sharing all of this with us.